Hello and welcome to my Substack page and the blog's insights I offer to help all navigate a changing world. Most importantly, my focus here is for us all to find our way to a personal inner liberation and to holistic freedom. Those of you who have read my first book series, The Shaman's Door, will be familiar with some of this information, but I want to encapsulate everything here to give everyone a deeper understanding of where these blogs, these books are coming from, and most importantly, if you resonate with this, because it either fits or it does not. It either serves your pathway or it does not. It really is that simple. One question that has come up is about my qualifications to offer such information and to even what authority or organization or religion I belong to. So let me make it crystal clear. I am not affiliated with any group, organization, or religion, and never will be. My journey has been and remains the pathway of the shaman. The word shaman is a relatively new expression for the most ancient of pathways, but don't get stuck on words or definitions. The shaman is the very first primordial expression or connection to worlds, dimensions, planes of existence beyond our 3D world. A shaman has no tightly defined job description because it all depends on their personal talents and inner powers. A shaman is beyond description because his or her alliance is to inner organic truth, and that often means they are a social misfit, a rebel, and most of the time a darn nuisance. The great Greek philosopher Socrates was a shaman, although I'm sure he would not have known about that word or used it. Yet his life story, expressed by Plato in his writings, has all the markings of the shaman. In addition, all the great movers and shakers of the world, the ones who have instigated huge consciousness shifts, have all been shamans. They may be called something else later on, but initially, if you look at what they said and what they did, they were shamans. This would include the Buddha, Jesus the Christ, and the Prophet Muhammad, among gazillions of others. They say a shaman is born that way, but I disagree. I believe from life experience that everyone has the shaman seed within. It just takes inner nurturing, along with serendipity, to awaken the sleeping seed, just as rain and sunshine awakens dormant seeds planted in the earth long ago. Shamanism is a skill, just like swimming. We can all swim, but some of us do it better than others. But in the end, with enough practice and determination, anyone can become a competent swimmer. Nobody would disagree with that. Shamanism is similar. Everyone has this inner seed because it is an essential element of returning to inner truth. I will expand on this and other posts, but for now, I just offer this information to help you understand that I'm not trying to sell, cajole, or pressure anyone into any organization or into any religion. My inspiration is simply sharing. Your role is to follow your heart and not your conditioning, and find your inner quiet voice of guidance and not be guided by the great elite. So let me begin with the beginning. It is hard to say really when it all began, but my first clear memory was when I was about 5 or 6 and had a nasty case of whooping cough. I knew I was very sick when every child in my class sent me a collective get well soon card. There was no daytime TV when I was little, so I sat in bed trying to stop coughing and unable to catch my breath. We lived in Canley in the Midlands of England opposite a crematorium, and I was besieged by dark dreams of ghouls and similar, plus the smoke from the fires could be quite acrid. So I was alone upstairs with nothing to do other than try to breathe. During one of the coughing fits, when breathing was particularly difficult, I began to see a bluish haze at the bottom of the bed. As I looked, I saw small figures dancing along my wooden footboard. I concentrated and noticed as I breathed deep breaths, the figures became clearer. Suddenly I could see what I later described as chubby fairies dancing together in joy. They suddenly stopped and looked directly at me, knowing I could see them, and they chuckled with glee and then resumed their frantic but delightful little dance. It was utterly joyful, especially because they were very chubby, just like me. I wasn't frightened because there was nothing there that was anything like the dark spookies I'd seen before. I just knew they were friends and they'd come to cheer me up during my illness. I was so very blessed to have a mother and a grandmother who knew and understood the little people, as they called them. If the washing got blown off the line, my grandmother would blame those darn little people, the fairies, and smile. They were friendly but naughty. They came to lighten our daily burdens with a touch of humour. So my mother gave me paper and crayons and asked me to draw them for her, and I did. As I did, I also noticed they became clearer to see. And as this happened, I began to hear them. For me, it was a line of connection and a strengthening, and it is so today. Over time, with my drawing pad, I began to see spirits and beings standing with people. My mother told me they were guardian angels, but over time I began to see so many various types of beings. But that took time. Then I started to see little lights around people. This was the beginning of seeing auras, and again, that took time. I found it easier to see them once I began to draw and interact with what I saw. This alignment has never stopped. I am a world traveller, and I have lived in many places and had lots of fun going here and there. But eventually I ended up in the early 1980s in Western Canada. I returned to college to complete my higher education. In my case, it was photojournalism, because I've always loved writing and I ache to describe what I see. I had a wonderful time learning photojournalism the old-fashioned way, typewriters, carbon paper, processing black and white film in dark rooms with enlargers and so forth. And then fate stepped in to move me in new directions. A journalist friend from college asked me to cover a story for her, freelance, because the date clashed with something important in her life. It was the graduation ceremony for Native American Indian students at the University of Calgary. It would start at 7 p.m. on a certain date at the campus. I was a young and keen reporter, so I arrived at the location with 5 minutes to spare, to find there was not an Indian in sight. I looked around, found the ceremonial hall. No one was there. In the days before mobile or cell phones, there was no way to double-check location or time, so I walked around looking for a poster or an official from the university. And then I saw him. He was sitting on a bench, all alone. I saw an elderly Indian man with a cowboy hat pulled over his eyes, arms folded, appearing to sleep. I slowly approached him and apologized for disturbing him and asked him about the ceremony. The old man turned. He pushed his hat to the back of his head as he looked up at me and smiled. "You were never heard at Indian time," he smiled. I shook my head, puzzled. I was just an English girl on her first assignment as a freelancer. What the heck did I know? He motioned me to the bench and I sat next to him. Over the next hour or so, he recounted the ceremony, explained the traditions, the costumes, the eagle feather, everything I needed to know. I took notes, I asked appropriate questions, and I was lost in the conversation. Then I looked up to see a huge crowd of native people, all dressed in traditional regalia, piling into the hall. The ceremony had begun. I raced inside with my camera, took my photos, questioned the organizers, obtained the names and qualifications of the graduates. And at the end of the ceremony, there was a giveaway ceremony, and of course I had no idea what it was. Suddenly, people were giving blankets or jewelry or items to others, silently and with reverence. And of course I had nothing to give, and I was puzzled about it all. Suddenly, a young native man pushed a $5 bill into my hand and walked away. And of course I, breaking all protocol, chased after him to ask him why. He turned and I saw pity on his face. He shook his head. "Ain't you ever heard a giveaway?" he said. His eyes looked sad and his head was shaking gently. I stood with my mouth gaping open, shaking my head. I could see he felt very sorry for this poor woman with the puzzled face. I shook my head and I asked why, and he shrugged for a moment and said, "You do not know our ways. I will teach you. I saw you with our ceremonial elder at the front of the building. He is the elder of our people. You spent a long, long time with him. And I wanted to spend time with him. I wanted to for months. You didn't even honor him with tobacco, yet he spent time with you. I was jealous, and that was wrong. So I did give away to you because I was jealous of you. and I did not trust that the grandfathers would bring me the opportunity. So I honor you, and I honor the ways, he said, and he turned and walked away. As I looked down at my $5 note, I scanned the room for the old man, who I now knew was the spiritual leader of his people. Again, breaking all the protocols, I raced over to him, interrupted him, and asked him for his name. And this time I actually thanked him. He was Grandfather Alex of the Blackfoot people, and he smiled. And he watched me write that down in my notepad, and he smiled again. Then he said, "I will see you soon. I have been waiting for you." It was quite mysterious, but I thought maybe I misheard. I had no idea what he was talking about. So I raced home to my electric typewriter and pounded out the story. I processed the film, I printed the images, sent it all off to the newspaper via courier. No emails in those days. After the piece appeared, it was taken up by the wire. In the olden days, in the 1980s, before the internet, there was no emails, but there was a news wire. My article, with all the details and explanations given to me by Grandfather Alex, captured the interest of many newspapers right across Canada, and it was published everywhere. Within days, the editor of the native newspaper based on the Blood Blackfoot Reserve in southern Alberta rang me. She asked me for my resume, and of course, I took the job. I drove onto the Blackfoot Reservation near Calgary, and it came as no surprise to see him waiting for me on the front step, coffee pot in hand. Grandfather Alex, or Medicine Bear as he was known, said to me, "I have been waiting for you," and this time we both laughed. This was my shaman's door, a door that opened to a new pathway, a new life, a new awakening. I spent years working, living, and training on many reservations right across Canada, the United States, and even down to Arizona. I apprenticed with a medicine man and a medicine woman, and one in particular who helped me align with the earthbound spirits who had become stuck between worlds, and so much more. These experiences later became my books. I arrived in Australia in the early 90s with the inspiration from the elders to begin to offer the teachings to Australians. I was utterly convinced that nobody would be even slightly interested. But as you guessed, they were. During those years, I opened 3 retail shops selling traditional goods materials from my native friends. I offered the teachings, the crafts, the ways, and they came. No one could be more surprised than me. Yet, as Grandfather said, I had been expecting. Yet as the years rolled on, I realized that explaining the ways to people deeply entrenched in their culture was not and never will be easy. Therefore, my art became an instrument of communication because, as we all know, a picture tells 1,000 words. I began to offer individual sessions, drawing the energies I clairvoyantly and intuitively see around each individual and offering direct communication with their guidance energy. I will offer a deeper presentation on this in a later blog, but for now, suffice it to say, guidance is with everyone. It's there to help us, to guide us towards spiritual liberation from the complex web that appears to be real, that appears to be this world. It is for this deep wisdom that we vision quest, not for glory, not to strut around telling everybody what our totem animal spirit is. It is to make a conscious alignment with guidance, to return our minds, our consciousness back to the all-knowing true self. Once this alliance is woven into our lives, no matter what challenges we face, we remain in peace within the certainty of truth. Slowly, my art became a central theme in my life as I began to see how so many people distorted and twisted the teachings, but most often for self-glory. I had entered this field with an aching wanting to know, and I assumed others felt exactly the same way, but not so. I began to see the few who wanted to become famous teachers had grown to the majority. As I looked around and then sat in connection with the spirit grandmothers, I received a clear direction to shut up the shop and move the heck away. Seemed a bit drastic. So I took it on board and then asked for a sign. And of course, it happened very quickly. As I walked into my kitchen, I found that a little mouse had gnawed its way through the middle of my only loaf of bread, eaten the whole lot, and made a sweet little nest right by the crust. He was curled up inside, fast asleep with a full belly. The mouse is the totem of scrutiny, and he became the confirmation for me to follow up on that vision. And so my journey as a spiritual artist began in earnest. As the old century ended and the new one began, I now travelled across Australia, offering these sessions and the artwork. My work was displayed in galleries. I illustrated books and divination cards, including the Gary Wiseman Animal Deck and many others. This, of course, led to writing books about my experiences. I felt that if the information was in black and white, as we say, it was safe. But of course, there's still those that never have been to North America who've Googled all the information and still declare that they're experts. It's inevitable in this AI age with so much distortion, false and phony teachers, along with the instant experts that flood this field of endeavour. Yet my teachers always reminded me that there is actually no such thing as a bad teacher. If you discover you've been hoodwinked or even abused by a teacher, there's part of you that needed to have that experience because it means you've been running away from your true medicine. Trust me, I've tried it. It doesn't work. Again, that will be the subject of another post at some stage, so please remind me. During the last 20-odd years, I've continued to offer my insights and write my books because of my journalism training. Today, I can type at 100 words a minute and think and or channel via my fingertips. It's like my fingers have a mind of their own, and the books just flow out, along with the book reviews and articles I also write for New Dawn magazine. I never wrote my books to become famous because I know they're only for a few who wish to embark on the shaman's path or who genuinely want answers to liberation. I never wanted to become a self-proclaimed shaman with a business card and interactive website. There's nothing wrong with doing any of those things. It's not a sin or anything. But it is a delaying tactic. And if you want to dilly-dally on the way, then have fun. But it's a circular path. All the books are available by my website and also as inexpensive Kindle ebooks. And now as audiobooks because they have robot voices. And again, all available via Amazon. I've been asked several times to offer this Substack page, and I'm happy to do so. After all, for me, typing's so easy, and speaking is a piece of cake. My hope is that you will reevaluate your life and truly look at your conditioning or programming, because ultimately it is that inner programming that determines your destiny, not your declarations or even your good intentions. The shamanic pathway, which places the responsibility of your life on your shoulders, is the pathway of liberation. However, you mold it to your needs, talents, and inspiration. It is not a one-size-fits-all, but a blending and a holding of power. I have lived an incredibly blessed life, not that it's over, of course, with amazing experience that even I find hard to believe. But it all came from asking questions following instincts. It all came from wanting to know why and jumping in the deep end. For example, I wanted to know why Grandfather Rufus was always driving around the dirt roads on the reservation in his big red truck going from house to house. It turns out he was a house cleaner. Not the usual cleaning, but the removing of earthbound spirits who'd become stuck. And so I begged him to take me on as an apprentice. He said no, but I persisted because I ached to know. And I kept going round and asking again and again. Finally, I met him in a coffee shop in Red Deer, a little town halfway between Calgary and Edmonton. And he finally took my request. And the rest is history. And my books in the Medicine Road series are based on my apprenticeship with Grandfather. Because of these experiences and many others, I've asked the spirits why, how, who, when, and I was always answered. I've come across exactly the right person, the right material, at exactly the right time, magically. And it is this magic that is the shaman's path. You awaken that within you when you walk as a shaman. They go hand in hand. The information I offer here in my books, in my articles, and including the articles for New Dawn, come directly from my experiences and my endless, endless questions. I will be sharing more and offering insights in these posts. Feel free to ask questions, and I will do my best. But in the end, the secret is the direct and personal connection with the great all that is, because there's so much more to you than just being you. Thank you, and let's talk again soon.